What's up, everyone? Thanks for checking in. I got a little different format of the podcast today. I wanted to go over something I've been arguing about with people for a little bit of time now. I want to go over the greatest TV show of all time. And so this is lots of opinions. This is a big topic. It's lots of different shows to consider, lots of different types of shows as well. So, I think you have to start with some criteria, and here's the criteria that I used. It needed to be at least 50 episodes. I took into account the star power and the quality of the acting, the quality of the storytelling and the writing, and how it holds up over time. And one thing to mention, a little caveat, whatever you say that word, is that I'm not considering reality TV because it's its own separate thing. And if you like this type of content, then maybe I'll make one and compare, Survivor and The Bachelor and whatnot. So this is just scripted television shows. So to start, the honorable mentions that didn't make the list of 24. The West Wing, ER, and Hill Street Blues, which if you're under 35-ish, you probably have to Google. I vaguely remember it. I know my mom watched it. I don't remember too much about it. I remember it was like a police show. But the list that I do have for nominees for the greatest show of all time, I broke them down into 3 categories: drama, comedy, and animated. The dramas I have: Breaking Bad, Ozark, Dexter, Game of Thrones, MASH, which kind of fit into both categories, Lost, The Wire, Sopranos, This Is Us, Mad Men, Walking Dead, Grey's Anatomy, and Gilmore Girls. That's the dramas. The comedies that I had are Modern Family, Golden Girls, Friends, Seinfeld, The Office, The Cosby Show, and Saturday Night Live. Now, these are not just all my submissions. As I was talking to people prepping for the pod, I had a lot of people giving their suggestions. I was okay, yeah. And then as I did the research, I just looked at Emmy nominations, number of seasons, stuff like that. So those are the comedies. And then I have 3 animated shows: South Park, The Simpsons, and Family Guy. I do think that it's tough to just look at all those shows as they are and say, okay, well, this one's the best. So I tried to kind of eliminate them in an organized way. So let me go through the ones that we are eliminating right away, right off the bat, and I'll tell you why we eliminated them. The first one to get eliminated is Ozark. It's not enough episodes. I think there was only 44 episodes. And I do think that 50 episodes, I was going to say 5 seasons, but shows do things so differently. But I do think 50 episodes is sort of the cutoff for you have to really do consistently great content to put out 50 good episodes. So Ozark didn't have enough, and also the ending is questionable, so it may fit into a category I have later of shows that got eliminated, but Ozark already out. MASH, I just don't know that it has the widespread appeal because it's so old. I vaguely remember, again, it was a show my mom watched, but it is interesting to note that the series finale at its peak had 121.6 million viewers. That's basically all of the United States at the time was watching MASH. So, I mean, even though it's not going to be in the running, it still warrants being mentioned that it was a huge show in its day. The Cosby Show eliminated. Unfortunately, it was a show that showcased a successful black family, which was pretty new at the time. But with all the stuff that happened with Bill Cosby since then, it's sort of tarnished the show, and I don't think you can consider that. Like I said, those 3 animated shows, Simpsons, Family Guy, South Park, it's weird to kind of compare them in there, and that's another, like, you could probably do your own, like, what's the best animated show of all time, but I eliminated those 3 because it's just kind of weird to compare them to non-animated shows. Then we have 2 90s hits, Seinfeld and Friends. I just don't think they hold up. They are streaming. I think they're both on Netflix right now. and people that like those shows and liked them when they were on will go back and watch them. But you don't see a bunch of people like, oh, hey, I just started streaming Friends for the first time and it's so good. It doesn't really happen. So I think it had its moment. Those shows had their moment in the 90s, but I'm not sure that carries over and translates to success like we'll see with some of the other shows in the 2000s. So those are out. Then there's 3 shows that I haven't even seen that were recommended: Gilmore Girls, Mad Men, and Grey's Anatomy. And in my mind, I was like, if I haven't seen them and haven't really been like, there aren't a bunch of people around me like, hey, you really gotta check out this show, it's so good, I just don't think it can be considered the greatest. So it's not me saying, oh, any show I haven't seen can't be the greatest. I'm just saying that if a show is really that good, it'll be pushed on people to watch. And those 3 shows for me. Then we have The Walking Dead, which, came out of the gate, was really cool, but it's like, how many times can we just get away from bad guys and zombies? Like, we get it, zombies. So, and I think it's still going. I think it's winding down now. I got lost somewhere in season 5 where it's like, okay, cool, I get it. So that's out. Then there's a couple sitcoms, Modern Family and The Golden Girls, and I just put Good Not Great in my notes for them. I mean, Modern Family I really enjoyed. I just finished getting through that series, and it just felt like kind of junk food for the mind. Like, you don't really have to think. The characters are funny, they're familiar. You're like, all right, cool. But I mean, when you're talking about the greatest show of all time, I just don't think either one of those shows. And The Golden Girls I remember really liking, which I'm sure I was in the demo. I was a little kid when it came on, but it was very funny. But again, it's kind of a formulaic sitcom, and I don't think you can consider those in that category the greatest of all time. Then I have one that doesn't fit in any category, Saturday Night Live. It's been on for almost 50 years, which is amazing. It has, I can't even remember, a ton. Let me look real quick. 929 episodes, which is just incredible. But it doesn't, it's a live sketch show that has evolved and changed over time. It doesn't fit anywhere, but it definitely, I mean, for how culturally relevant it's been, how it's swung political campaigns. I mean, it's been very impactful for almost 50 years. So, I mean, I don't think you can have a list of the greatest shows of all time and at least not mention it. So, but I did have it being eliminated. Again, it's kind of it's a weird format, but I just think there's a couple shows that are better, but this should at least be on the list. Then I have a category that I call Titanic vibes, the ship, not the movie. The show started out great and it doesn't end that well. And I have a couple there of Lost, which was weird. Like, they woke up and the whole thing was they're in purgatory the whole time. Now, I have a couple friends who were like, that's not it, it was blah, blah, blah. But I thought there was a lot of storylines. I haven't seen it for a while, but when I watched it, I remember thinking, like, there's a bunch of what happened to the smoke monster, and, my buddy was trying to convince me, well, that was Jacob's brother. Anyway, it just kind of went all over the place and then ended with, hey, the whole thing was just they're all in purgatory. What? So, bad ending. I'm out on Lost. Game of Thrones. Now, when I say I'm out, I mean, I still enjoyed the show. Still glad I watched it, but I'm looking for the Michael Jordan of TV shows. So, it can't be Lost. Just can't. Game of Thrones, again, incredible. First 7 seasons are awesome. Even there's moments in the 8th season, but overall, the 8th season, you could tell the writers were already working on Star Wars. They had mailed it in. And it just didn't, the 8th season just wasn't good. And it impacted the rest. And if you remember back in the time, people were like super pissed about how bad that season was. So don't come at me with your Game of Thrones stuff. At the time, you were pissed at how bad it was. So if you don't stick the landing, you start out, you look like this incredible invention of a ship, but then you crash into an iceberg and almost everyone drowns. You don't get to be the Michael Jordan TV shows. So try to follow that analogy. Game of Thrones, out. Sopranos, which I've only seen a couple episodes, but I know that the ending was super controversial, and supposedly I got some insight from a Hollywood insider who happens to be my mom. She said that they originally ended that because they planned on doing a movie and bringing everybody back to do this outside movie. that would kind of tie everything up, and then James Gandolfini died. So, but again, that's kind of like Ozark. No spoilers, but the way Ozark ends, like, kind of leaves things open-ended. I don't like that. Like, if I invest time into your story, like, finish the story. It doesn't have to be crazy, it doesn't have to be, but I want some finality to it. So Sopranos, out. Dexter, which is like a popular show that, like, people really ride for, like, oh, I love Dexter, blah blah blah, but almost everyone says the ending wasn't very good. And then they put out another season, I think, like, maybe trying to fix the fact that they ended that poorly. But from what I heard, the last season wasn't very good either, the one that they brought back. So Dexter, out. So those four: Lost, Game of Thrones, Sopranos, and Dexter. Titanic vibes for those shows. Okay, so that leaves us with 4 contenders. Those 4 contenders are The Wire, The Office, Breaking Bad, and This Is Us. So let's go over a couple of those. Let's go over those in depth, kind of go over some of the stuff there. So The Wire is a show, it is older. I think it was like early 2000s. Like, it's so old. I remember my friend Kevin Hill was like, you gotta see this show, The Wire. It's so good. And I remember I started getting the DVDs in the mail from Netflix. That's how old. That should kind of give you like a real good gauge of when that show was super popular. So it had 5 seasons, 60 episodes. And I would say before Breaking Bad came out, it was easily considered by Hollywood experts to be the greatest show of all time. Has an incredible cast. Young Michael B. Jordan, Idris Elba is in it, and I thought the guy who stole the whole series was Michael K. Williams, rest in peace. Played Omar, was this incredible character. I thought it was great. The cons for the show, it is a little dated. They use pagers a lot, which if you're under 25 might have to Google. And it has sort of an old feel when you watch it. It's been a while now. I will say it's probably been whenever I was getting the DVDs long since I've seen that show. So it might be due for a rewatch. But from what I can remember, even at the time, it felt a little dated. So that's our first contender. The second contender is The Office. Had 9 seasons, 201 episodes. The pros, and I've caught a lot of flack from my friends who are serious, like TV and movie guys or people. They're like, oh, you can't have a comedy in there. Your list is already invalid. It doesn't count because you have a comedy. I think The Office is different. I really do. It was so culturally relevant in the moment, and then it goes on Netflix and almost has a second life where it picks up all these extra viewers, and then it becomes like, oh, I'm doing my homework, so I just put the show on. And it's like people think, oh, well, these characters are like my friends, and I just put them on the background because it's comfortable. I recognize them. I know what's happening. So I just think for the amount of cultural relevancy, and people don't even realize it, wrapped in 2013. So it's been off the air for almost 10 years. And it's still, when I go into offices, I see stuff, it's still the most quoted show. I know, like, our team, we quote it all the time. Like, it happens all the time. Or you're still talking about that scene from from basketball episode or the healthcare episode or whatever, the Dundies, and people are referencing these lines. And to me, that is a sign of incredible art when it's still impacting the culture 10 years after it ended. Now, it had a little shaky ending, the last few seasons were a little rough. I do feel like they nailed the last episode. I still cry every time Michael Scott comes on. Spoiler alert, it's been off the air for 10 years. But when he shows up in the final episode, I still get a little weepy, which is awesome too, because in the moment they didn't credit Steve Carell so that it would be a surprise to viewers. So yeah, that at the time was a surprise to people too, which made that even better. It's Netflix's biggest show ever. It was the most watched show, and it's also keeping Peacock afloat. So there's a lot to be considered with The Office. Breaking Bad, the next contender, had 5 seasons, 62 episodes. The pros of that loaded cast. Season 1, you're talking about Bryan Cranston, Aaron Paul. Like, wow, that's impressive. And then in season 2, you add Gus Fring, Saul Goodman, Bob Odenkirk, and Giancarlo Esposito. That's incredible. And when those two guys come in the show, that show takes off. And it had a satisfying ending, which is good. It stuck the landing, And then on top of that, they did a movie, which you're like, oh, you did a good job ending it. Now you're gonna have a movie that might end it, that might ruin the ending. But the movie was good, and the ending of the movie was good. So they kind of stuck the landing twice, which I think is also impressive. The only con I could really come up with is the Fly episode. If you've seen the series, you know that's just kind of this random episode. It's very controversial. If you go on Reddit, people will argue about the significance of it, why it was there. So, and it is kind of one of those episodes I'm like, I don't really want to watch that if I'm watching it again. So that's Breaking Bad. The Last Contender, This Is Us. 6 seasons, 105 episodes, written by Dan Fogelman, who also did Crazy Stupid Love. Incredible movie if you haven't seen it. The pros for This Is Us, masterful cast, as you know, I mean, Sterling K. Brown, Milo Ventimiglia, Mandy Moore. I mean, loaded cast. Also, the penultimate episode, which is a cool way of saying the episode before the last one, I just keep describing as beautiful. It was just an amazing episode. And again, This Is Us, there was no shocking ending or whatever, but it did a really good job of tying up the stories, giving us an idea of what the characters are going to be doing in the future after we leave them. And that's all I want, and so up until the end of the series, I don't know that this show would have been as high on the list as I had it, but I just felt like they really navigated that final season in a way that showed how good they were as a show. So I had it there. The cons for that is that it was on NBC. I just think network TV, it sucks. I mean, as far as putting out good shows, they were constantly moving it around. They were starting and stopping at weird times. They would oh, we're going to put this episode on after the Super Bowl. That kind of stuff. I don't want to have to try to find it. You know what I mean? Most of these other shows, you can just jump on a streaming service and watch them. So, but if that's the only con for the show, wow, it's pretty impressive. So the 4 contenders, The Wire, The Office, Breaking Bad, and This Is Us. I think before Breaking Bad, I would have said The Wire, which might be a surprise because, I think a lot of people missed it because it was before the streaming era. I think if it lived on HBO Max, where I believe it is now, when it was popular, I think it would have had a stronger push later on. The Office, Breaking Bad, I think are both on Netflix. No, sorry, The Office is on Peacock. Breaking Bad, I believe, is on Netflix, and This Is Us is at least on Hulu. I don't know if it's on Peacock. So if you want to stream these 4 shows, but to pick the winner. And I'll give you my rankings, the 4. But the winner that I had, actually, let's do it pageant style. In the 4th spot, I had The Office, which as a comedy I do think is an accomplishment to even be considered on the Mount Rushmore of shows. And I think you can make the case. So for all your snobby TV friends, you can't have a comedy in there. Just bust out some of those stats I gave you, and my friend was saying, oh, there's nothing artistic about comedy, acting and writing. But if you look at episodes like Goodbye Michael, incredible. The season finale, incredible. And there's parts in there where Michael Scott is both lovable and a doof. Well, that takes some acting skill and it takes some writing to be able to make that happen. So I've got The Office in number 4. In number 3 spot, I have This Is Us. And I do think, like I said, before the start of the last season, I probably would have had it 7 or 8 on the list, the top 10. But I just felt like they really did a good job with the ending of that show. So it jumped into the 3rd spot. And in the 2nd spot, no, I should do the winner, right? Yeah, because then you just assume, yep. So the winner for me, the greatest show of all time, is, drumroll, Breaking Bad. And I just think everyone who's seen that show, I don't know of one person that's most people I would say that I talked to after seeing that show are that was the best show of all time. Plus, if you look at the writers, the behind the scenes showrunner, those people, they then went from Breaking Bad to Better Call Saul and spun off another hit show that's now in its 6th and final season. So like I said, they did the movie, so it created this world that has been wildly popular still. I still think it holds up. If you were to start it today and stream, I don't think it would seem dated. It wouldn't seem old. I mean, it's just from start to finish an incredible show. So that's my top 4: Breaking Bad, The Wire, This Is Us, and The Office. If you think I'm off, you think I'm crazy, I missed a show, I didn't put Hardball with Keanu Reeves on there, and it should have been, let me know, send me a DM, post a comment, whatever, but let me know what you think. Did I get the list right? What did I miss? And again, as always, thank you for watching. Please feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon.